Open up your mind and imagine the possibilities. Broadcasting live to you worldwide from the great Upper Midwest. This is Night Talks Radio. Want more Night Talks? We have you covered. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Night Talks Radio for bold and truthful commentary, breaking news, show updates, program guest information, and so much more. And hey, thanks for listening.
What's your story? What's your sign? It's like we're twin flames in a different life. Deep connection lights a spark. It's like you know me in the depths of my heart. We're dreamers. Don't care what other people say. We're living like this could be our final day. We're dreamers. Don't care what the others say. We're doing this in our way. We come alive.
Saturday night has arrived, and that can only mean one thing. Night Talks Radio is back on the air. We've been gone for just a little bit. Of course, we had Easter last weekend, but we did have plans on going on. But of course, more of those mysterious things happened, denying us the show or shows that we wanted to do. On top of the fact that Jennifer Gregerson, of course, wasn't feeling top-notch. So we didn't want her going on the radio not feeling well. I'm sure many of you don't want to hear throwing up on the radio while we interview guests. So we thought better of it. But with that said, this is Night Talks Radio coming at you from the great Upper Midwest on this. Well, it was beautiful Saturday evening, but has now once again turned dark and cloudy and rainy with some thunder in the distance. We've had a few tornadoes touching down to the west of us, some even looking like they might be heading our way. So if we suddenly go off the radio, folks, just know we have been whisked away to the land of Oz. But with great hope, we plan on staying on the air tonight for all of you out there, as we have a great show planned for you. Our special guest tonight is James Michael West. He is a cryptid and paranormal investigator, not to mention researcher. He began to experience strange things at the very young age of 6 years old, when he encountered his first poltergeist. He's been working in the paranormal and cryptid field for over 8 years now. And as of January of 2021, he started the Greene County, PA Cryptids Facebook page. All along the way, having multiple encounters with the paranormal and cryptids, especially the Dogman, who he encountered twice in his lifetime. James ended up having a natural curiosity to things that go bump in the night by researching library books and investigating the creepy encounters that not only he had, but others also have. So thankfully, tonight, we have gotten James to come on Night Talks Radio to fill us in on the paranormal and cryptids in the night. Of course, some of you may have phone calls for James. We're going to hold that to the end of the show, the last 30 minutes or so. And of course, that call-in number is 1-507-384-3930. That's 1-507-384-3930. 384 3930. Write it down, keep it near you, because I guarantee you shall have plenty of questions for James. So if this is your topic or subject tonight, you're going to be a happy camper, so to speak. Coming up next, James Michael West, right here on this Saturday edition of Night Talks Radio.
Hey guys, this is Jennifer Gregerson. Night Talks Radio News is coming back exclusively on NTR Facebook. I'll bring you the latest news without the mainstream media spin. The real stories, the real facts, the real truth. Because here at Night Talks Radio News, I do not comply with fake news. Night Talks Radio News, weekly with me, Jennifer Gregerson, starting this month on NTR Facebook.
James, are you there?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent, excellent. James, can you kick things off by just giving a little bit of information about yourself?
I'm 36 years old. I was born here in Greene County in Waynesburg on the 15th of January. I had my first experience that I can recall when I was about 6 years old with a poltergeist. As I grew up, I gradually had started accumulating more and more odd things happening to me, all the way from just ghosts and shadow people and shadow monsters, all the way up to encounters with the dog man. Also, about 8 years ago, I really started getting into the research more and more. I finally got over the trauma of the dogman encounters enough to where I really wanted to start getting into the research. And so I started up a Facebook group, Greene County, PA Cryptids, and that's where I post most of my stuff now and projects that I do. I pin them to the top of it. So if anyone would be interested in all kinds of different projects, feel free to check them out. I'm also a member of the Phantoms and Monsters 14 research team, and we're constantly investigating, you name it, ultra-terrestrials, extraterrestrials, winged cryptids, pale humanoids, dogman, Bigfoot. I mean, just a plethora of things. And also, I'm in about 50% through the process of writing my own book.
All right, that's great information there. I think Jennifer has a few questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do. So, James, do you want to be called James, or what would you prefer to be called?
You can call me by my middle name. It's Mike.
Okay. All right, Mike. So, how did you get into the field?
Well, like I said, when I was real young, about 6 years old, It was 1992. I went to a friend's house, and, you know, we did the normal thing. We played all day, and finally bedtime rolled around, and he had a set of bunk beds. I climbed in the top above him, and he had this big oak toy box sitting there. Well, he fell asleep, and I couldn't get comfortable, and I heard this creaking sound. And I looked over, and the toy box lid opened on its own. A basketball popped up out of it and then continued to bounce down his hallway. And I jumped out of the bed and followed it. It bounced all the way down his hallway, bounced into his living room recliner right in front of the television.
Wow.
Then the TV came on. It was just snow, then just static. There wasn't no picture or nothing, but it flipped through several channels of static.
Well, that's not scary at all.
No.
And the TV shut itself back off. The ball rolled out of the chair and bounced back down the hallway, and I followed it. It bounced back into the toy box and slammed the lid shut, and that woke up his mother and him, and he's saying, "What are you doing, Mike? What are you doing in the toy box?" It's
just playing basketball at night.
Yeah, and his mom came out screaming at me. I said, I wasn't doing nothing. Well, here, a couple years later after that, I was about 8 years old, and I was talking to my parents about it. And they told me that it was their understanding that a little boy that was 8 years old had been drowned by his own mother in that house.
Oh,
about
no.
5 years prior to my friend moving into it.
Wow.
So, yeah, I kind of just put the two, and I can't guarantee nothing, but I put two and two together, you know, and think maybe it was the spirit of that child.
So how did you feel when you saw that? Did your little hairs stand up in the back of your neck?
You know, honestly, I was just more curious than anything. It didn't even scare me. I mean, looking back on it, probably should have had a dirty pair of underwear on, you know.
Right. Now, were there any other strange occasions or events that took place after that?
Yeah, actually, we finally moved from a little town of Crucible whenever I was 9 years old and moved into the house that I'm currently living in.
Okay.
It's in Nemacolin. And I was either 11 or 12 years old, and my father was working in our basement installing a shelving system, building it out of 2x4s and stuff.
Okay.
And he wouldn't let me go down there while he was working. He didn't want me to get hurt, which, you know, I understood.
Right.
Well, you know, 11:30 or so, 11:30 rolls around. I hear him snoring through the wall, and I said, you know, now's my time to go down and look and see what he's doing.
Right.
So I snuck down to the basement, and at that time, the light in the basement, you turned it on at the top of the stairs, and it only lit up about 30% of the basement.
Okay.
I would stay back.
Yeah. Spooky again,
So
written all over it.
Yeah, exactly, you know. And I turned the light on, walked down. I stayed in the light, and I was trying to find the next light switch I found the breaker box and was following the wires, trying to, like I said, find the next light switch and see what he was doing down there. Well, about the time I turned to look at the breaker box, I heard the sound. It sounded like a real low guttural growl.
Oh, my
It sounded
gosh.
like it went like...
Yep.
No, I got goosebumps.
That's when I'd be leaving the house immediately, but go ahead.
And I turned around, and about 15 to 18 feet away, there were two eyes that started glowing red about a foot apart from each other. They were about the size of a silver dollar.
Now, are you saying that this was one sort of looking creature, or were there two separate creatures?
It had to be one entity, and I'll tell you why in a second.
Okay.
But like I said, it had glowing red eyes, and as I stood there and watched it, it started to growl again, and its mouth opened up, and it was about 4 inches past the one eye, and then it kind of gave me a smirk, but I could see its teeth.
Oh, good Lord.
And about 4 inches past the other eye. So the the smile on this thing was probably 16 inches long or 18 inches long.
Wow.
Wow.
I'd be like
and
chucking back upstairs real fast.
Yeah.
It was a good 3 to 4 feet off the ground.
Okay, so you're saying this thing was floating as well?
I couldn't see because it was in the darkened portion of the room.
Okay.
Could have
I
very
don't
well
know if
been
it was
standing.
levitating
Either levitating or sort of hovering, perhaps. Yeah.
Right.
Right, or if it was just something that manifested that was standing there. I mean, I couldn't be certain.
Right, understandable.
So, my dad had a socket wrench set laying there, and I grabbed a 3/4 inch socket out, and
That's
I
my
threw
man.
it at
Yep.
That's my man.
his eyes as hard as I could throw it, and then I proceeded to book it back up the stairs. And I slammed the basement door shut and deadbolted it from the inside.
Oh, okay.
And while we had that door on for about 5 years, we left that door on every now and then periodically, you would hear something in the basement scratching at that door.
Oh.
We never figured out what it was, but it would do it routinely, and so to where my dad thought maybe some like raccoons or something made a nest in the basement, and they were trying to come up out of the basement, and they were scratching. But the thing is it was loud, like if you had about a 80 to 100 pound dog digging at the door.
Wow, that's
wow.
okay. That's pretty heavy. Yeah. Okay.
And you'd open up the door, and there were no marks at all on the inside of the door.
Wow, for strange.
Wow. So, okay. Now, this, and you said this would happen quite often. Was this every other week, every month? How often did this happen that you heard these sounds coming from the basement area?
For about 5 years while that door was on there, it was 5-6 times a week.
Wow.
So did your father ever go back down there again?
Well, something good about that. The next day, whenever I come downstairs to get ready for school, he was sitting there having a cup of coffee, watching the news, and I said, "Dad, I need to talk to you about something." He's like, "You were in the basement, weren't you?"
Oh, wow.
I was like, "Yeah." And I told him what had happened, and his face just, like, all the color sucked out of it. And he's like, "Yeah, I know there's something down there. I don't want you going down there alone anymore." He wouldn't elaborate any more than that, but at that time I knew that he had seen something too. He just did not want to talk about it.
But he still went down there and continued to work and everything?
Only in the daytime.
Okay, so never at night.
He never
the latest he would be down there was till maybe 8 o'clock, like when it started, like in the wintertime when it started getting dim outside around 8 o'clock, he would be back upstairs long before it started getting dark.
Yeah,
so he never ever gave you a description or anything like that?
No, I think honestly, I mean, and like I said, I'm just speculating here. I think he was down there working, and when he stopped his saw and it was quiet, I think something growled at him. Right. I don't think he ever saw anything, but something growled at him. And this is a guy that's, since the time he was 10 years old, he was an outdoorsman. He grew up in the woods. I mean, he's hunted almost everything you can
probably
think
used
of.
To sounds like that even, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, this is a guy that, he would go bow hunting for coyotes at midnight.
Well, there you go. Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, if it scared him,
Yeah, there's a problem. Yeah, I completely understand that. So, okay, so we've had this phenomenon now. Now, what perspired now after this throughout the years?
Well, it was fairly calm for a while till I had my dogman encounters, and that was I had the first one in the winter time, a couple weeks before Christmas of 2002, and I was 16 years old. Like I said, we're hunters. We've all, since I was little, we hunted. It's just like a second nature thing to me.
Right.
And one night, it was about 11:30 at night. like I said, mid to late December, and I woke up and I was just wide awake. I laid there and tossed and turned from 11 to about 11:30, and I just could not go back to sleep. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take a walk over across the hill where I live to what we call the slate dump, which is just a big pile of shale and slate made into a man-made mountain. So I gathered all my equipment, got my shotgun, and grabbed some bait and my game collar and all that stuff. I decided I'm going to go hunt some coyotes. So I walked over, and when I walked outside, it was snowing, no moon at all, and I had to turn my spotlight on just to be able to get into the woods from all the snow. Well, by the time I walked, and mind you, it's only 500 or 600 yards to where I was going, but you got to go down this real steep hill. We call it the hill from hell because literally it's almost straight up and down.
Okay.
And at the bottom of it drops you right into a multiflora rose bush at the bottom, so you got to be real careful.
Ouch.
Yeah, so I walked my way all the way across, down that hill, down a steep ravine, up the other side, till you run into a mining road that takes you up towards the top to where you get to the summit of the slate dump, and there's roadways that take you up onto it.
Okay.
Well, I got up to a spot that I had hunted before and decided that would be fine. So I ran my game collar out, put it out so I could broadcast the sounds and put my bait there.
Mm-hmm.
Loaded my shotgun with number 2 coyote loads, which that's the biggest number shot you can get until
Correct.
you get into buckshot.
Correct.
And I was using a 12 gauge with an extra full turkey choke in it.
Okay.
So the pattern would be real tight and I could get a good distance shot.
Exactly.
Well, like I said, I put out my call, sat down there, and I had a 1,000,000 candle watt spotlight with a red filter on it so that if anything got close enough to where I could hear it or smell it or anything, I could just turn that light on. And the red filter, canines have a hard time seeing a red light.
Oh.
So, so it gives you 2 or 3 seconds to actually aim and shoot at the coyote rather than
reaction time.
White light.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, because the white light, you'd hit them with it, they'd just boogie, they'd just get out of there.
Yep.
So I sat there for a good 45 minutes or so, and the snow was accumulating on me. I kept having to brush it off of me and stuff, and I said, you know what, I'm plenty tired now. By the time I walk back, I'm freezing cold. By the time I walk back, I bet I'll be tired enough to go to sleep.
Right, exactly.
So, so I reach over, my spotlight's sitting beside of me now. Keep in mind, I'm sitting on the ground with my back up against the big pile of crush and run gravel that the mine had left there. And I had my knees up in front of me because I had this it's like a little cup type thing that you strap to your knee, and you can lay your gun in it.
Okay.
So that, so it keeps it kind of aligned for you. Well, I'm sitting there like this. I reach over and turn the light on, and lo and behold, approximately 10 feet in front of me, I just think, man, that is the biggest coyote I've ever seen. And, man, it's standing there awful funny.
Okay.
Well, here it was, of course, a dog man.
Wow.
It had its arms out, like it was on all fours, but it had its arms out like how a human would be doing push-ups.
Yeah.
And its back legs were kind of splayed out, too. It was almost like, kind of like if it was imitating a spider or something,
Oh, wow, okay.
And it was sniffing the ground. Well, whenever I turned that light on, it's like it saw it instantly. It didn't, it didn't
so there
do
was
like a regular...
So there was no
it didn't
delay.
do like a regular canine.
It instantly, it knew it was being watched, essentially.
Right, like as soon as that light hit it, it looked right at me. Like it knew where I was. So I think personally, I mean, I don't know because I can't read its mind or couldn't read its mind, but I think it was stalking me.
Right.
Right.
But
because
it just
whenever
stayed
I
there?
hit the light, it stood up on its hind legs and puffed its chest out and made one deep, like if you hit like a 50-gallon drum with a stick, like that deep of a thump in its chest. But it didn't make a bunch of plops like people have reported.
Okay.
It just made that one deep thump in its chest, like its sternum popped or something.
Okay. Almost like it was stretching or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But it stood up like that, and I was just like bewildered. Like
I was going to ask you, what are your feelings at this very moment when you're seeing this happen right in front of your face?
What happened was I didn't even think. I just reacted, and I think it was just from a lot of years spent hunting and training for shooting and stuff like that. I didn't act. I reacted.
Mm-hmm.
It took one step towards me on its hind legs. It took one step, which was about 2 feet before it. So probably not a full step, but it kind of like stutter stepped towards me, and I just took it as aggression, and I shot it in the chest, in the mid-right side of its chest.
Okay.
And if you're familiar at all with how shotguns work, they have what's in the shell called a wad.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that's filled with the pellets. Well, with an extra full turkey choke and being anywhere from 8 to 10 feet away, the whole wad and everything had to have went through it. So basically, it was like hitting it with a slug.
What happened to the creature after this?
Well, it made a huge plume of misted blood, and it dropped its ears down flat against its head towards its back.
Okay.
Let out a yelp. It let out a yelp, and that million candle watt light, the light circle at 10 foot is about 12 feet in diameter.
Right.
Okay.
And this thing was about 2 to 3 feet from the left-hand side of that light circle. Well, it took 2 steps on its hind legs and was gone out of the light.
Wow.
It moved from its right to left. So it moved probably 9 or 10 feet in 2 steps.
Unbelievable. Were there any was there any evidence left on the ground that you did shoot it or anything of that nature?
Well, and like I've told people before, when it happened, one, I was kind of befuddled, and I was young and didn't think about collecting DNA evidence because I didn't even know if what I saw was a hallucination or what. You know?
Right, exactly. I can't imagine what I would think.
Well, I walked over to where it was standing, and lo and behold, you could see specks of red mist all on the snow, and its footprints. Its foot was about 16 inches long, 14 to 16 inches long.
I do apologize, James. That's our tornado warning siren that we have on our NOAA weather radio. We're clicking that off right now. I do apologize. Continue with your story.
Well, like I said, it left tracks, and the tracks were about 4 to 5 feet spaced out in its stride. Well, I took, and as it was running away from me to begin with, I shot at it 2 more times, which I don't think I hit it because it didn't act like I hit it. It just kept running.
Right.
So I reloaded the shotgun and started to walk in its direction. I took the filter off of my light because I figured, well, what's the point? You know, it can see the red light. All it's going to do is hinder me from seeing. So I took the filter off the light and started following, and the snow was just getting heavier and heavier. And my visibility was 6 or 8 feet.
Okay.
You know, and with that bright of a spotlight, it was more like 5 feet because it was just bouncing off of that snow so bad it was just reflecting right back at me. Like if you're driving down the road with your high beams on in a snowstorm,
yep,
how it bounces back at you.
Yep.
Well, I followed its tracks, and it did leave a puddle of blood about the size of a pie plate.
Wow.
And then about 8 or 10 feet went, and it was a smaller puddle of blood, maybe 6 inches around. And then another 10 or 12 feet, there was hardly any blood at all.
Okay.
And then I walked like another 5 to 8 feet, something like that. I walked probably 30 to 40 feet altogether from where it started to where I finally stopped, to where the only thing that was left were tracks, and there was no sign of blood anymore. And I thought, well, one of two things has happened. Either I hit it with such a traumatic wound that it actually, the shock of it stopped it from bleeding, or two, this thing is like something out of a legend, and it can heal itself rapidly.
Right,
and
right.
In either case, I didn't want nothing to do with it. It was wounded.
Right,
and
absolutely.
I couldn't see, I think even if it would have been like noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I don't think I would have went after it anyway, even if I could see that good,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But-
completely understandable.
But I walked back 2 miles out of the way. That's how worried I was about the thing. I walked 2 miles the opposite direction till I could hit some four-wheeler trails. And it took me about an hour and a half to walk 2 miles. So I was taking a step or two, stopping, shining my light 360. And then I'd take a few more steps, shine the light 360 to make sure it wasn't following me.
Right, right. And again, I mean, you were 100% sure in your head that this wasn't, your average, say coyote or other type of animal. You saw in your eyes that this was something that symbolized the dogman.
Absolutely. Like, when I first saw it, after the event happened, after it had ran away, I was just questioning myself, like, did you really just see a werewolf? Did you shoot a werewolf?
Right, yeah. What
'cause-
happened, yeah.
Because at that time, I didn't even know there was such a term as the quote-unquote dogman, I didn't even know that was such a term. I mean, everybody's familiar with werewolves, so that's
Right.
kind of how I described it until I learned more.
So what was very distinctive from this dogman that you actually researched it and found out that was exactly what it was?
Yeah, what led to your research into this?
Well, where I started was, I started looking, first thing was just werewolf lore in Pennsylvania and with, like, the local Native American tribes and things, to see if there was anything in the historical record that would match it, just to see, because, like I said, I was thinking I was crazy.
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, if I go back far enough, even if it's only 100 or 200 years and people were seeing them then,
Let's see if this event took place before.
There's some credence to it.
Right.
So I started looking there, and then I started intermittently just researching images of werewolves until I found one that I thought was similar to it, although it wasn't real similar, but it was the closest thing that Hollywood had come up with. And then I started typing in dog-like creatures walking on 2 legs and having hands.
Okay.
And once I started looking in and adding each little thing to narrow it down more and more, it started bringing a picture together to where it had to have been a dogman.
Okay.
Because, and then you think about, like, the werewolf mythology, it's supposed to be during a full moon. Well, there was no moon. They're supposed to put off a putrid odor. I smelled nothing, but the wind was whipping around so hard with the snow and everything that I'm not surprised I didn't smell anything. I mean, the wind was blowing at my back and then in my face, then at my side. So, it's not surprising that I didn't pick up an odor, because my nose is actually pretty good for a human being.
Right. Now,
whenever I'm hunting, like if I'm out hunting and like hunting for deer, or just say I'm hunting for deer, like I can smell the deer usually about 100 yards before I see the deer.
Right, right. Now, you had mentioned that you felt as if this thing was stalking you. Did this remind you of what you had witnessed or heard in the basement?
Well, like I said, the one that I encountered and shot, it didn't make any noise really. But it didn't have the same characteristics. Its eyes weren't glowing, not at least ambient glow. I think the glow that I saw was due to my light reflecting
Gotcha.
out of its eyes. And the thing that I saw in the basement, it's just, say if I was looking at its head, I mean, like I said, I'm just speculating.
Yes.
But if I was looking at a head, its head would have been double the size of the dog man.
Wow. Okay. So now you've had your first encounter with, the dog man, quote unquote. What happened next now?
Well, a little interjection between my first and second encounter here is this past summer, my father and I went back to look around and see what we could find.
Okay.
And I found the spot where it had happened, and we measured some of the trees around, and I had my dad stand there with a walking stick, and then whenever I came home, I drew lines that showed how tall my dad was, how tall the tree branch was, and then the suspected height of the dog man was about 10.5 feet tall.
Wow. Wow.
And if I had to guess, it was around 3 to 4 feet wide from shoulder to shoulder, like from upper arm to upper arm.
Wow. Now, Mike, before we actually get a little bit more into your second encounter with the dog man, let's bring you back to your house. And you had mentioned that you had a whole multitude of paranormal experiences, one being shadow person in your bedroom?
Yeah. Well, it was actually in my living room.
Okay, can you explain that?
You might as well call it my bedroom because that's where I was sleeping at the time.
Okay.
Well, what happened, the first encounter that I had with the shadow people, shadow person, was the best guess I could say was about 2018. It was the summer of 2018. I was laying down on our couch in the living room. It was about 3:30 in the morning because I woke up, but I was in the classic state of sleep paralysis.
Oh, yes.
I couldn't move at all. The only thing I could do is I could look around the room and I could breathe. And my breathing was real shallow. I couldn't control it very well, but I could breathe.
Okay.
And now I'm laying on the couch facing away from the wall. My girlfriend's across the room from me in a chair. She fell asleep in the chair. And the way our room is set up, I was, like I said, in the living room. Well, there's an open doorway that leads to our kitchen, and it has about a 7-foot header. There's about a foot over the door that's the wall that runs the header over the door. So the actual doorway is about 7 foot tall.
Okay.
Now I'm laying here and I'm looking around just almost freaking out because you don't know what's happening, why you can't move.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been there.
Yeah, and something just caught my eye, and the thing I think really got me was we always leave a light on in the kitchen for my dogs so they can go to their food and water bowls at night.
Okay.
And I just noticed movement, and that light went out. And then about 10 seconds or so, I'm guessing, went by, and the light come back on, and that thing was standing in the doorway.
Oh, Lord.
Have you ever thought about getting a new house?
Oh, jeez. My goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Well, it had like orangish colored eyes, almost like orange like fire.
Orange eyes.
But it didn't have a mouth or nose that I could see. I could just make out the shapes of its ears, and it looked just like a tall, fairly wide man, and he was thin.
Okay.
Not
Like skeleton-like even, maybe?
No,
Like Slender
not
Man?
thin as in like a very lean athlete. Thin.
Okay, gotcha.
So like Slender Man?
Not quite that thin, but about that tall.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Because like establishing that the door is about 7 foot high. It actually, when it came through, it bent down to come through the door.
Okay.
Did it do anything
my
to you?
feelings are. What was that?
Did it do anything to you?
Absolutely.
Oh.
After it came into the room, and my ceilings in here are about 8 foot, and its head was almost touching the ceiling.
Oh, wow.
It came over top of me, and it laid down, wrapped its legs around my legs,
Wow.
and then wrapped its arms around my upper body, around my arms and chest.
Wow.
And it didn't like squeeze me, but it felt like if you've ever ran a great distance and you just feel completely exhausted.
So it's trying to drain your
Yes.
energy.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like it was draining the energy out of me as I was going. Like the more it laid on me, the more tired I got. And the only thing I can equivocate it to is it felt like my life lights were going out. Everything was turning dark, even though it was at night. We still had that other light, and it's just like the light was gradually going out.
What do you do in this case? I mean, you're essentially telling me that your life is being drained from you. What happened after this?
Well, I managed to save up a few breaths worth of air. Like I said, I was breathing real shallow, so I just kept breathing in as much as I could without letting it out. And then I pushed my abdomen. I'm a singer too.
Okay.
So I pushed my abdomen like you would to sing.
Yep.
And at the same time, I tried to mouth my girlfriend's name, and it woke her up.
Oh,
and when
wow.
she looked over at me, before she could even turn her head a quarter of a turn towards me, it jumped up off of me and turned into a puff of smoke and disappeared.
Wow. So did you ever speak of this encounter to anyone else?
Well, I told my girlfriend after, the next day, and I told my mother about it, which she lives in the house too. And I've told my father about it, and that's about it. I mean, other than with you guys right now.
Right. Did they ever say anything that they had experienced anything like that?
My mother actually said that she had something in her bedroom staring at her from the doorway leading into her bedroom. And the doorway leading into her bedroom, we have a little nightlight in the hallway, and it's backlit. So she could see it, like, in silhouette. And
Wow.
I asked her if she could see through it or could she make out any shapes. She said it looked like a really tall, naked man. But it was black. It was just a shadow.
That's strange.
Like it didn't have the typical hat like you think of with the shadow people, the hat man or anything. No hat, no nothing.
Right.
And actually, I think one of the pictures I sent you, that's why I sent it to you, because that was the closest thing I could come up with.
Yeah, we're definitely going to post that after the show so people can kind of take a look at what you were visualizing at the time.
So Mike, one more question here, and then I'll let you speak to Daniel. I think he has a question for you. They do say that sometimes the paranormal can go hand in hand with UFOs. Have you ever experienced any UFOs?
Yes, actually, I have. It was around the same year that I had the experience with the thing in the basement. Maybe a year later, I think, because I think I was about 13.
Okay.
I was up. This is whenever I had a bedroom upstairs. I was laying in my bed, and to show it'll show you I'm not a spring chicken either. I had a Walkman that only had.
I know all about
tape.
that.
Yeah, it was a cassette tape and radio. And I was laying in bed, and I just was listening to the radio, and the antenna for it was actually the headphones.
Okay.
And I was laying in bed, and my house felt like it was vibrating. Just like a real subtle vibration. Almost like if you had a Chinook helicopter fly over top of the house, but it made no noise. It was just like a low vibration.
Gotcha.
And I took, and my headphones started going.
Oh, interference. Okay.
Yeah. So I took off the headphones, and that's when I heard my windows rattling. So I got up and walked over to the window and put my hand against it, and it quit rattling, and I could feel the vibration.
Right.
Well, after about 10, 15 seconds, the vibration stopped, but I noticed outside, which originally I thought it was maybe just a couple stars, or it was like planets or something that I was seeing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a radio tower approximately 2 miles from my house. You look out my bedroom window, and you can see this radio tower. It's like 150 foot tall, and it has a red flashing intermittent light on the top, and then midway down there was a blue flashing intermittent light. It's just to keep the local pilots from crashing into it.
Understood, yeah. Aircraft warning beacon.
Right. And I was just, by curiosity, I was looking at those things that I thought were planets, and they started making weird S shapes and figure eights and moving real slow across the sky.
Oh.
But they would move like to the right and then just drop like 100 feet to where I would lose them behind the trees, and then they would come back up and hover there.
Wow.
Well, they kind of just sputtered around each other for a while. I had no way of knowing how fast they were going. Like I said, they were a good 2 miles away, but they were moving quick for being 2 miles away.
Right. You can tell, yeah.
Yeah, and not like that typical lightning flash speed, but I mean fast. Faster than any jet I've ever seen.
Yeah, I was going to ask something that couldn't be, an airplane or a helicopter, perhaps. It was something different.
Right. Well, and just the movements they were making, like they would go fast and then just stop and immediately go up. You know what I mean? Like nothing that we have that I know of can do that.
Just zero turn, just the ability to stop and go the other direction on a dime.
Right, exactly, and that's what it did too. Both of them did that at one point or another. Where they were moving. I would guess, if I had to just throw a round number at it, I would say they were moving 500 to 700 miles an hour, and then would just stop and rise up in the air a good 100 or 200 feet, and then they would drop back down. But then they started flying around this radio tower. The red one, there was a red orb and a blue orb. The red one flew over and was probably 20 or 30 feet above that tower, and it gradually sunk down over top of it, and the red light that would flash quit flashing.
Really?
The blue one was still going, but the red one quit flashing while that orb was near it.
Okay.
Well, the blue orb come flying in from the right side and went to the blue light, and it quit shining. Now, up on all of the legs of this thing, there's 4 legs that led up to the tower part of it, and there were intermittent lights like every 50 feet or so, just a regular, like, large incandescent bulb is what they looked like.
Okay.
And then every 50 feet down, all the way to, I think it was like 50 feet from the ground was the last one, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But all of those lights went out all at one time. After that blue one got in position and that second light went out, every light on the tower just went out.
Really? Okay.
Maybe they're draining the energy.
That's what I was thinking, because I stood there and watched them for another 3 to 5 minutes, and they gradually meandered off, and then once they got so high up, they did that lightning bolt speed, like, gone.
Just boom, gone.
And a couple minutes went by, all the incandescent bulbs lit back up, and then the flashing bulbs slowly came back on.
Almost as if they were refueling themselves. It sounds like very odd. Did you get an idea now? I know you said you were about 2 miles away or so. Did you get an idea in correlation with the size of the tower about how big these objects may have been?
Well, I know the last tier leading up the tower is 20 feet across, because I actually have a couple friends that were hired to paint it about 10 years ago.
Okay,
Wow.
okay.
And they told me that the last, because like I said, it looks kind of like the Eiffel Tower. It has a wide leg base,
Yep,
and then it gets narrower and narrower as it goes up.
Yep.
And then at the very top of it, it flattens off, and there's one really large, like 20 or 30 foot tall antenna that comes off of it.
Okay.
But they told me that the top tier of that was about 15 to 20 foot across. And whenever I think back to where those, at least the red one, the blue one was kind of too far down to get an idea with the size of the tower.
Mm-hmm.
But that red one, I would say that the red and blue were both about the same size, but it was sticking out beyond that tier probably by at least the width of the tier.
Wow.
So probably like 15 feet on each side. So
Huge.
plus the 15 feet of it, so maybe 45, 50 feet across.
Wow.
Jeez. Now, did this you stated that this tower was more or less a radio tower. Do you know of this tower perhaps have anything like 5G signaling on it or anything else communication-wise?
Well, this happened before there was even really 1G.
Oh, did it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was strictly just a radio signal tower.
Yeah, because I think the best cell phones that were out at that time were like the big brick phones.
Gotcha, the Nokias, yeah, that you could drop from the Empire State Building and it would still work.
Yeah, I always called them my anti-personnel phone, because if I got attacked, I could beat you with it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. It's so funny that you speak about. I have one of those in my kitchen drawer as we speak. That thing has lasted a good 35 years along the lines, something of that nature.
Right.
But use it as a paperweight now.
So, Mike, when you encountered the UFO, by any chance, did this entity, creature-like thing that was in your basement disappear with the UFOs?
No.
So
I believe, and like I said, again, speculation, because, I mean, how can you really know without being able to tap into the spirit world or something?
right, exactly.
I think that the thing in the basement became something else, or reverted back into its original, whatever type of being it was originally, because in the early winter, late fall of 2019 now, I was actually possessed here at the house.
Did you say, I'm sorry, you said you were possessed?
Possessed.
Okay,
correct.
continue.
Me and my girlfriend, we were staying at her place in the next town over, and I just left my dogs here to kind of watch the house for me, and I would come back a couple, 3 times a day to feed, water, and let them out to the bathroom and such. Well, it was about 8 o'clock at night. It was my last trip to the house for the day to let them out.
Right.
And I come into the house and, was just doing my normal thing, feeding them and petting them and stuff. And the next thing I know, I woke up, an hour and a half was gone, and I was
Really?
laying on the floor in the fetal position with both my dogs standing over me, crying and licking me.
And you have no idea how you got to this point.
No, the only reason I know that I had to have been possessed was while I was unconscious, for lack of a better term.
Right.
I called my girlfriend and word for word told her, I am something that is older than this earth. I have been here since before time began, and I hope that you don't ever want to see Mike again, because I'm going to command him to kill your dogs and then burn the house down around himself.
Wow. Okay. You just produced about 1,000 questions in my head. Okay. So were you aware of what you were saying, or is this what you were told you were stating?
That's what she told me, because whenever I came to, and I noticed, like I said, I was on the floor bawling my eyes out when I came to. I mean, I was drenched with tears and dog slobber.
Right.
And and I think honestly the dogs are what saved me, like them licking me and
licking you too,
at me.
brought you back essentially.
Right. Because if I would have been here alone, I don't know what would have happened. But whenever I woke up, I looked at my phone. That's how I pieced together about how much time I lost, because it was the last time I remember looking at the clock, it was 10 after 8. And then whenever I looked at my phone, it was 9:35.
Unbelievable. Wow. So you had quite a bit of loss of time there. I mean, in your head, what are you thinking when you wake up? I mean, you're completely baffled.
Well, I called my girlfriend. I noticed that her number was the last number dialed, even though I know that it wasn't.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I talked to my dad a few hours before that, so his number should have been the last one in my call log.
Okay, so you still had recollection sort of before this took place?
Before and after, yeah. But
okay.
During the event, I had no clue what happened. But like I said, I just kind of pieced it together and my phone call with her was 11 minutes and 36 seconds long. I called her back, and I said, whenever she answered, I said, "Hey, honey, what's going on?" And she's crying, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. What's going on?" And then she proceeded to tell me what I told her. And I said, "Hon, I have no idea what happened." I said, "I don't even remember, like, blacking out or falling down or hitting my head or any of the number of things that could have happened. I don't remember. I just remember, like, to me, it felt like I blinked my eyes and I was on the floor crying. You know, that's how fast it happened."
Right. I'm gonna hold you right there, James. I want to continue this story. We're gonna take a short break, come back right to you, and we'll continue this story. This is Night Talks Radio, folks. We're talking to James West. We'll be right back to continue this story. This is Night Talks Radio.
Hey guys, this is Jennifer Gregerson. Night Talks Radio News is coming back exclusively on NTR Facebook. I'll bring you the latest news without the mainstream media spin. The real stories, the real facts, the real truth. Because here at Night Talks Radio News, I do not comply with fake news. Night Talks Radio News weekly with me, Jennifer Gregerson, starting this month on NTR Facebook.
Want more Night Talks? We have you covered. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Night Talks Radio for bold and truthful commentary, breaking news, show updates, program guest information, and so much more. And hey, thanks for listening. Welcome back, everybody. We had to take a quick break there, but we're back with James West, and we're going to continue the story that we were speaking about right before break. James, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if we could pick up where we left off before break, my friend.
Okay, I wanted to add in there too. It was late fall, early winter when I was possessed in 2019.
Okay.
Also, in 2019, I thought it would be notable. it was early fall, probably a couple months before the possession occurred. I saw a shadow entity, for lack of better terms. You could either call it an entity or a creature. As this shadow creature, it had tentacles coming off of its head, and it had arms and legs that were all tentacles. It didn't have any conventional bone structure or, arms and legs to move around like you would imagine a humanoid being having. The only real humanoid characteristics, it had a head with rows of sharp teeth, slanted red eyes, and I could make out muscles in its chest and stomach.
Wow.
Well,
that's the one I thought you were originally going to talk about when you said about what happened in your living room, because you had mentioned to me before about the tentacle ones.
Right. Well, I didn't forget to bring it up.
The story I want to hear is the one that he was.
Yeah, he wants to hear about the possession one, a little bit more about the possession one.
Okay, but yeah, after I come to and she had told me what was going on, I just immediately finished doing what I was doing and I left.
And never happened again.
I had to come back every single day, 3 or 4 times a day, to take care of my dog, so there really was no escaping it.
Right.
I did have my house, a friend of our family was a Baptist pastor, and he came in and he blessed the house with holy water, and he had his purple vestments on and, all the official stuff. But he went around the whole house, blessed every wall with oil and holy water, rebuked whatever was living in the basement, which I don't know if it worked because the possession happened after he had apparently rebuked whatever was in the house.
Okay. So, yeah, you could have actually made this thing pissed off a little bit, perhaps.
Absolutely. And the thing that gets me was the thing told my girlfriend that it was something older than time itself, older than the earth, like it had been here before the Big Bang happened. And
really?
It must have got caught up in the vortex of the earth being created, and it got stuck. I think personally it's stuck on this land, not in the house.
I see.
That could make sense. You could possibly be sitting on a portal?
Well, it's a very good question, and I think that it could be. Because just of all the odd things that happen around here, I mean, like I'll set something down, and it can be something that I use all the time. Like I'll set a lighter down. I'm a smoker, unfortunately, but I'll set a lighter down, and I'll go to the bathroom and come back, and my lighter's gone. Just gone.
You got little gremlins.
Just little things.
Yeah. Or I have a woodwork shop in my house that I do custom woodworking for people.
Okay.
And my tools will come up missing. One day, no one was in the house. My mother was at work. I went to my girlfriend's house in the next town over.
Okay.
I have a gate that goes up on my stairs to keep my dogs from getting upstairs because it's just so dangerous with all the tools and stuff. So they can't get upstairs. I come home and I hear a noise outside. I'm outside my front door and I hear, going, what in the hell is this?
Yeah.
I open up the door. It's my table saw upstairs is running.
Oh, wow.
And mind you, I'm very religious when it comes to my power tools, especially like table tools.
Completely understandable.
They have key locks that go into the switches that you can pull out so the switch won't work.
Right, exactly.
And I always take the key out of my table saw, my drill press, and my router table. I always take those 3 keys out and I put them in a windowsill. That way, because my mom, she has a bad habit sometimes of going up there looking for a hammer or a couple nails.
Right,
this
right.
or that. And one time she bumped it and turned it on, and she said she about scared the hell out of herself.
Yikes.
And so I started pulling the keys so that way if she was up there, she wouldn't get dismembered from something.
Right,
you know?
yeah.
But yeah, like no way was anything up there, but my saw was running. You know, so I went up and turned it off, and the key was back in it.
Wow.
So I took the key out, unplugged the saw from the wall, put the key up where I normally put it, and then come back downstairs. And in that time that it took me to go turn that off and come back downstairs, my house keys come up missing.
Wow, so this is like a chain reaction of events, of these small things missing, or the case of your saw and things like that.
Right, and it's not always little stuff. Like, I had $180 come up missing with nobody in the house.
Just out of the blue.
Yeah, it was sitting on my table, literally, like, from where I'm sitting right now. But I got a little table beside of me.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the bank. My mother wanted me to pull out money out of her banking account for her so she didn't have to stop on her way to work while I was already out. So I stopped at the bank for her, got her money out, brought it home, set it on the table right beside of me. I started working on the book that I'm writing. I was typing. And before I know it, an hour went by. And I went, oh, wow, I need to give her that money. She'll be going to work pretty soon. I closed my laptop, and the money's gone.
Wow. Say, when
she come out, she's like, what's that?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, she come out, and she said, did you get my money out? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, where is it? And I said, I don't know. And she just looked at me with this mean-ass look. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. It was right there. It's just gone.
Yeah.
You know, so I had to pay her back, which wasn't a problem other than I'm disabled and I haven't had a job since 2016.
Right.
Which it took me about 2 years to pay it back.
Yeah. Hey, trust me, I completely understand that situation. When these things were taking place, did you have a sense of, I don't know how to say it, evil, or did you have a sense of this thing was just playing games with you, perhaps? Anything like that?
Well, usually it's like these things have been happening for so long, like I said, since I was 6 years old. So
kind of got used to it, maybe?
I mean, you don't fully get used to it. You just become aware of it.
Yeah.
And once you're aware of it, like I said, sometimes the thing feels like you just get this gut feeling that it has malcontent towards you.
Right.
And sometimes you get the feeling that it's just trying to be a trickster, you know?
A trickster. I was going to mention that earlier. It sounds like, in some occasions, it's almost playful, trickster-like. Yes.
Exactly.
So now, what was the final straw where you? I know in 2001 you decided to make this Facebook group. What was the final push to get you going on this Facebook group?
Well, like I said, I had the experiences with the dog man, and for a long time I'd been wanting to do research about it, and more or less it caused me to have PTSD.
Okay.
And it caused me, I don't know if it caused me to or just allowed it to happen, but it gave me bipolar 1 and mood swings and just a whole laundry list of mental conditions. But I just finally was talking to a couple friends that I had, and they said, well, why don't you do more research on it? The more you know about it, the easier it'll be for you to understand, and the more you understand it, the less afraid you'll be of it. Mm-hmm. Which I still have night terrors about it frequently. I mean, at least a couple times a week. I mean, I wake up drenched in sweat, screaming at the top of my lungs.
Oh, yes.
And my girlfriend will ask me what's wrong. I say, I was fighting the damn dog man again.
Wow.
You know, like in my... Well, to give you a little bit of background in this, you're not going to believe me. I'm telling you, you're not going to believe me.
Lay it on me. Lay it on me.
After I had the first encounter with the dog man in 2002, it was the summer of 2003, 17 years old. I was walking up, and I do believe I sent you pictures of the map of where I had these encounters at.
Yes, you did.
So so you can show them. The second encounter, it has a number 2 on the picture, and it has a red dot on Google Maps. That's where the actual encounter happened.
Okay, we'll be posting this after the show. Okay, go ahead.
But I was walking to my friend's house right on the main road. I mean, it's just that simple. It was on the main road, walking down our road, and you get up to where it's forest on either side of the road, and the road gradually makes a left-hand bend. Okay? And it's about a quarter-mile long. Well, I got halfway down it, and I was right in the middle of that bend, and I'm just walking with my head up, and about 50 to 60 yards ahead of me, this big black dog, and it had to, not including the tail, it was probably 6 foot from tip of its nose to anus.
Yikes. Okay.
And a good 3 to 3.5 foot tall at the shoulder. And if it had the mass to it that you would expect like a mastiff to have, but it was like several mastiffs worth of muscle.
Wow.
But its head had like the German Shepherd Doberman like ears, and its face reminded me of a black German Shepherd.
Okay.
But it was just so big. Well, it was on all fours, and like I said, at first I just thought it was a big dog. Because, I mean, it wasn't uncommon for me to run into somebody's stray dog here and there, you know. Never one that big, but, you know, it wasn't an uncommon thing to see a dog, you know. So I just stopped and stood there to see what it would do, because usually if it's somebody's stray dog, it'll either gradually walk up to you and either growl or be wagging its tail, or it would just run back into the woods to avoid you.
Right.
Well, it started walking towards me, and then it just, out of nowhere, just started hauling ass as fast. It seemed like it was running as fast as it could run towards me. It covered that distance of 50 or 60 yards in about 5 seconds.
Wow.
Well, and at this point, like I said, I'm still thinking it's a dog, just a huge dog. Till it got about 15 foot from me, I noticed it was running on hands. Its back legs were paws, but its front feet or hands or whatever, front paws were fingered hands with claws on them.
Huh.
Well, luckily, I was heading to my friend's house. We were going to go behind his house and clear out a whole bunch of multiflora rose and jagger bushes and stuff, and crabapple trees with big thorns on them.
Right.
Well, I was dressed in a a canvas jacket, and I had briar guard pants on, which they're heavy blue jeans with it was a new material that was out. My dad used to go to gun shows a lot for his work, and he had just bought these $90 brush guards for me, and they were brand new on the market. I can't remember who made them. I think it was Browning.
Okay.
But they were interwoven canvas with a type of Kevlar interwoven into the pants. Well, this thing ran up to me, and I didn't know what to do. It was another one of them things where I didn't act. I just reacted. And when it lunged up at me, it got close enough to lunge at me. I just turned to my right, and I made a fist with my left arm, with my left hand.
Yeah.
And I just pushed my left arm out as hard as I could, and it jumped up, and my fist went into its mouth and slid right down its throat.
Oh, wow.
Its mouth came all the way up past my elbow, and I was pushing still. Because if you didn't know this about canines, at least with dogs, and apparently young dogmen too, if you can get past their point of swallowing, they cannot bite down anymore.
Oh, okay.
That's correct.
They can bite a little bit, but with almost no force. It like deactivates their jaw or something to where they can't get any pressure to bite down.
That's right. That's correct.
And I thought of doing that because a couple years before I had any experience with Dogman, I got attacked by a pretty big Rottweiler on that road, and that's what I did to it. It was the same exact way. I handled it the same exact way. Well, with the Dogman, once I had my arm in it, I reached over, and I was a football player then, and I was pretty strong. I was benching like 285. And I reached over its neck with my right arm and fell on top of it. And I weighed about 185. I fell on top of it, got my arm wrapped around its neck, my right arm around its neck, and I squeezed it for everything that I had in me for a good 2 or 3 minutes until its body finally went limp. And at that point, I didn't know if I killed it, choked it out, if it just passed out, what.
Right.
I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in getting my arm out of this thing and starting on my way before it revived itself.
Or came after you.
Yeah. Well, I got my arm out of it, and I brushed. It was like a film of mucus on my arm, and it stunk like rotten meat.
Oh, man.
And I'm scraping this off of me, like throwing it down on the side of the road, trying to get it off of me. And it was only 20 or 30 seconds, and I hear, like that. And I look over, and this thing's gagging, starting to stand up already. And I'm just going, oh, shit. What am I going to do now? Well, pardon the language, but...
No, that's okay.
I'm just I beat it by a fluke, and now it's going to know that that's what I'm going to try to do. And it, thank God, it just stood there, and it had the most beautiful yellow eyes.
Wow.
It was like taking a beer and holding it up to the sun.
Yeah.
It had those amber-colored eyes.
I completely know that look.
And it just stared at me, stared right into my soul, and just peered into my eyes. Like that's what it was trying to do, was get a point across to me. And the point that I got across was it saying, "You bastard." That's what I felt, Now, if that's what it was actually meaning, I don't know. But that's in my head. I got that idea of "you bastard," And it coughed a couple more times, and then ran past me 2 foot away and ran back into the woods. And I'd never seen it again.
Huh. Well, maybe you actually scared it off this time.
Hopefully. But I've had people say, well, how did you know it was a Dogman other than its feet, And I said, I think personally it was a juvenile Dogman. It wasn't used to fighting humans.
It seemed dazed, confused.
The only reason that I got away.
Wow.
So you lucked out.
I would have still probably thought it was a dog to this day if whenever I had it around the throat, it grabbed both of my upper thighs with each of its hands on the corresponding sides.
Wow.
And it tried to squeeze, but I give it credit to my dad getting me those Kevlar canvas briar guards, because normal briar guards go from like the seam on the side of the jeans and they go around to the inside seam on the jeans. Well, these ones actually went all the way around except like 3 inches of the back of your leg. And they went all the way from the bottom of the pant to the hip.
So you had cushion.
Yeah, not only that, protection.
They had good protective values, and that thing could not, even with claws, and they were pointed claws, it could not leave a mark in them.
Wow.
Huh. So...
And like I said, that's the story that really got me, it gave me the PTSD and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was the scariest and strangest encounter that you'd ever had.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And like the first time was bad enough, but at least I had a firearm. I felt sort of confident that I could stop it if I had to.
Right,
like
if necessary.
But I didn't even have a pocket knife on me the second time.
Ooh.
whenever it got up, if it wanted to just attack me again, it could have easily just attacked me again. And there probably would have been very little that I could have done after it knew my strategy, you know?
Yeah.
So, James, how many cryptids have you researched?
Oh, God. Extensively, I've researched, of course, the Dogman, Bigfoot. I count extraterrestrials of all kinds in there. Ultra-terrestrials, like things from alternate dimensions, alternate realities.
Extra-dimensional, yep.
Exactly.
The tentacle man.
I count ultra-terrestrials kind of like interdimensional. I kind of like interchange those two.
Okay.
There's something that's on just a higher vibrational plane than us, to where they might be coming from a fourth dimension, and that's how they're able to phase in and out of dimensions.
Exactly.
They're from a fourth or higher. And I'm sure you've heard of, like, we're in a 3D dimension. If we look at a cartoon on a piece of paper, that's a two-dimensional
2D
realm. And if you were alive in 2D, you would look at your friend standing there, and all you would see of them is a straight line.
There's a straight line, that's correct, yep.
Well, us being 3D, we can see far more than they could in a two-dimensional frame of mind, and that's what the fourth dimension kind of is to us. That's why it's speculated that fourth-dimensional creatures can go through walls or through space-time.
No physical barriers.
Yeah.
Yep.
But anyway, I've done extensive research on pale humanoids, like the Dover Demon, stuff like that.
Okay.
The winged cryptids, especially out of Chicago, it's a real hotbed for winged cryptids right now.
Wow.
I've studied different sea creatures, lake monsters, river monsters, everything that you can think of, like from Champ and a Loch Ness monster up to Megalodon to the Altamaha, that's a river monster down south in the southern states.
Did you keep your investigation just to Greene County, by the way?
Right now, yeah.
Right now,
But
yeah.
if there's any that are close enough that I can hit, like local counties near me, I will do those as well.
Okay. So, one question here I had is, living in Minnesota, the only thing that we know of or have heard of is Bigfoot. Through your research, have you found anything that we should be aware of up here in Minnesota?
In Minnesota, I know that just like your counterpart to Michigan there, they have the Michigan Dogman.
Oh, yes.
Well, there's actually the Minnesota Dogman, too.
Oh.
The only real difference that I've found in the two is the Minnesota Dogman is usually more canine-looking than its counterpart in Michigan.
Okay.
And they are typically slightly taller and less well-defined. Like, they have very well-defined musculature systems, but they're more lanky.
I see.
Almost like what you would picture like a Rougarou or something being.
Right. Funny thing about that is I'm actually originally from Michigan. Funny that you brought that up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Upper Peninsula?
No, actually, I was about 45 miles out of Detroit. I don't know if you're familiar with the Wayne, Westland area, Wayne County.
Okay.
Yep, I was right there. I was probably about, I'd say about 60 miles from the Ohio border from where I live. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with Michigan stories as well as Minnesota now. But yeah, I do believe that Jennifer has another question for you.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, with the tentacle creature that you experienced in your living room, did that do anything to you?
It just really shocked me because the whole backstory of it was I was sitting on my couch. My one dog, his name's Bully because he was the bully of the litter. He's a big boy. He's 100 to 120 pounds. He's a pretty hefty dog. He's a German Shepherd pit bull mix.
Okay.
And if I'm 5'10", and if he jumps up on his back legs, he puts his front paws on my pecs.
Oh.
That's how tall he is.
Gotcha.
He's a pretty hefty boy. Well, I was sitting on the middle cushion of the couch, the big dog's on my left, and his mother, which she's 85 pounds, German Shepherd Pit Bull mix, she's on my right. And I was just sitting there watching TV, and both of the dogs started growling. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, be quiet. There's nothing there. I don't hear nothing on the porch. There's nothing there.
Right.
Well, about the time I said that, Big Boy looks up and turns his head to the left and starts staring at the ceiling. Well, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at the ceiling, and I looked at the ceiling, and here's this thing with the tentacles off its head and kind of like wrapped up in the corner of the room, going almost to where my stairs would lead up. It's in the very top corner of the room, like holding itself in the corner of the room. And my dog is growling and now these are dogs that when I let them outside, if they're not chained up, which they have to be, they'll chase people on motorcycles and four-wheelers down and bite at their tires and stuff.
Right.
So they're not really too scared of a whole lot. And he stood up, he got up on the back of the couch, and he dove at this thing. And I'm like, oh my God, it's going to kill him. Well, he hit it, and it did like the shadow person did. It just turned into a puff of smoke and was gone. And he was sitting there, looked with his head. Yeah, he was sitting there with his head cocked to the side, just like bewildered, like, where did it go?
Unbelievable.
So, yeah, if it would have just been me seeing it, I thought, I think maybe I would have been a little more skeptical. But with both dogs seeing it too, I know I wasn't just seeing something.
Right, yeah, you have confirmation, with the animals. Real quick, just for everybody out there, if you have any questions for James, you can call it to the show at 1-507-384-9390. That's 1-507-384-9390. Now, do you feel, with everything that you've told us so far tonight, do you feel that you are essentially being followed, or whatever these things are that are doing this to you are just staying with you, essentially?
I think so, because whenever I was young, and I mean whenever I was still an infant, I think about 3 to 6 months old, we were living in a town of Crucible that's about 6 miles from where I live now. And we were living in a trailer at the time, my mother, father, and myself, and we had a ghost. They called him George the Poltergeist.
Okay.
And it would go and it would open up our kitchen cabinets, throw stuff on the floor, but it had some type of intelligence to it, because it would never throw glass on the floor. It would only throw wood, plastic, and metal stuff on the floor. So my parents always thought it was because of me being a newborn and just getting to where I was able to start crawling and stuff, that It was actually trying to show that it was there, but didn't want to hurt me as an infant crawling through glass or something.
I see.
But yeah, so since I was a baby, we've had, I've never known a time that there wasn't some type of paranormal thing happening.
Wow. Do you think
also,
it could possibly... do you think it could possibly be something to do with an ancestor, maybe?
It could be. It could even be a family tie type thing, because I've researched my family as far back as I can go without actually buying memberships to things,
Yeah.
And we were involved in like the second or third group of settlers that were coming here from England and Germany.
I see. Okay.
So we could have had a curse from the old country, or who knows what, attached to our family, because my grandfather, my paternal grandparents, my grandfather, he had stuff happen like this all the time. He had a workshop in his house. His tools always would come up missing. He would buy brand new stuff. It would wind up in the attic for no reason, you know, or in a bedroom upstairs that he knows he didn't put it there. And growing up, we lived next door to, my grandfather lived next door to W.A. Young and Sons Foundry in Rice's Landing.
Okay.
It's an old machine shop back whenever they used coal power to do everything, like steam.
Yeah.
And it's suspected to be haunted with someone who whistles. Well, my grandfather, the one who I said had these experiences and stuff also, well, he used to work in there and whistle all the time. So I think he's still there.
Oh. Well, that would make sense, it sounds like.
Yeah. And then whenever I would be at my house in Crucible, right up the hill from where my grandfather lived, we would have stuff come up missing. We would find old coins, like not extremely old, not from the 17 and 1800s, but like we'd find coins from like the 1920s. Just like I'd come home from school, and there would be a coin laying there from like a penny from like the 1920s laying there.
Wow.
Like, you know, why?
Just random things to get your mind going.
Right. Well, like my parents, the house that we lived in Crucible, the landlord was supposed to fix our dining room floor. It had termite damage before we moved in. They got rid of all the termites, but they never replaced the floor. So you'd walk through and the floor would bounce with you on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dad said, you know, enough's enough. I'm not risking us falling through this floor because of so-and-so being lazy and not doing what they said they're going to do. So he ripped up all the carpet and was cutting up the plywood and running new supports for the floor and new plywood and stuff. And he intended to put the same carpet back down. Well, he ripped the carpet up, rolled it up and put it in the corner, fixed the floor, and then when he was rolling the carpet back down, a coin that had no dates on it, but it looked like something that you would expect like an ancient Roman soldier to be carrying.
Right.
Slipped out of that carpet that was rolled up, and it rolled into the corner, and he picked it up and looked at it, but there was no way of authenticating it because it had no date, no names. Like, you couldn't tell if it was some Roman dictator or whatever. You wouldn't be able to tell who it was.
Right.
But he took it, and apparently at that time he didn't tell me then, but they were having problems in the basement with things scratching at the walls coming into the basement because it was an old cellar in the house to where it was limestone bricks that were just rocks. They weren't actually bricks. They were like bigger than cobblestones, but just random sizes. And they used clay pack in between the stones to actually build the root cellar. And things would scratch and try to get through the walls. Well, one time he had something got through the wall, and it left claw marks down the wall coming in from about 4 feet up down the wall were 4-fingered claw marks to the floor. And that coin that he had found, he put it up on top of the footer for the house in the basement. That coin was laying where that thing had been scratching.
Wow. Well, like a little trinket of sorts.
Yeah, well, the thing is the coin was 8.5 feet up in the air on top of the wall.
Oh.
You know, the header of the wall, it was up on top of that. So whatever got it knew where to get it, you know, knew where to find it.
Wow. Very smart.
Yeah, that's insane. Did you ever, or anyone in your family or friends, have you ever gone to the authorities about any of this type of stuff that was going on? Even in the beginning, when you kind of maybe didn't know anything about what was truly going on?
Well, my parents did kind of in passing to friends of the family that were police officers, and like we have a friend that's a constable and stuff like that. They pretty much just went and said, hey, has this kind of stuff been happening in our area? Like, people breaking into houses and stealing stuff or leaving a calling card of like old coins.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
doing this or doing that, you know. And I live in a real small town where up until 8 or 10 years ago, there was hardly any crime ever committed. It was one of the places like you could leave your door unlocked at night and you didn't have to worry, you know.
Oh yeah, I remember those days.
And yeah, I wouldn't do that now, but
right, yeah.
But yeah, there was no reports of anybody, you know, breaking into houses. Nobody else was reporting finding things like that we knew of or that they could tell us.
And not even neighbors or people that were close to you like that?
No.
Wow.
And the house that we lived in Crucible, it was a duplex house, which that's two houses pushed together they share a central wall.
Right, correct.
And the neighbors that we were connected to never brought up to us that anything like that ever happened. But, I mean, we would always hear stuff digging in the walls or climbing around in the attic or, you know, just you kind of attribute it to like maybe a bird got in the attic or a squirrel or a raccoon or there might be a rat in the wall or, you know, it could be all kinds of different things. But
you always try to make a rational explanation for it, you know. Right.
Well, this house that I'm living in now, I have a lamp plugged into an outlet. Well, I was sitting here one night and it went and the light popped. So I heard it crackling inside of the wall, and I went to school for electrical and building construction. So I opened up the outlet, and the wires were chewed in two, but they were chewed in two inside of the box, not on the outside of the box.
So what was chewing at these things?
Yeah, and I took the panel off the wall, and there wasn't no rats or mice or nothing in the wall that could have chewed it there. Because, I mean, if there was something there that chewed it, it probably would have got lit up, and it would have been dead laying there.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
You know, and there was nothing there. So I just had to go down, flip the breaker. I took the outlet out and rewired it because it completely scorched the outlet.
Wow.
It was blackened.
You know...
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. You were going to finish?
Oh, no, I was done.
Okay. You know, how does a person get a hold of you if they have any questions relating to these type of subjects that we're talking about, or maybe even need an investigator that has your type of knowledge?
Well, you can always reach me on Green, Greene, County PA Cryptids on Facebook. That's my direct page.
Okay.
And you can also even if you don't want to look up the group page, you can find me as James West on Facebook. And my profile picture is a dog man that's tinted red.
Tinted red, okay. And, of course, we'll post this information on our Facebook group as well. Just in case anybody wants to reach out and get a hold of you about these type of subjects. You had mentioned that you're in the works with a book. Is that correct?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up to before I forget.
Yeah, no problem.
In 2020, right after the thing possessed me in 2019, we had a flea market that summer in 2020. And I overexerted myself to the point where I went into complete kidney failure.
Oh.
And I didn't use the bathroom for 4 days, and I was completely delirious, thinking I was playing video games with the TV not even being on.
Oh.
And my girlfriend finally convinced me to go to the hospital. Well, if I would have went when I wanted to go, I would have died. They told me if I would have waited 3 more hours, I probably would have died. But when I was at the hospital, they were running bags of saline on both my arms, and I swear I had a near-death experience that everything just got black around me, and I was awake, but I wasn't awake. Like, I could hear the nurses and the doctor talking.
Was it like you had horse blinders on?
Yeah, like my eyes were still open because they were talking to me. But I couldn't see anything. Everything was just black.
Wow.
And then I gradually couldn't hear them anymore. Hear the nurses and doctor talking to me. I couldn't hear them anymore. And I saw nothing. I don't know if that's purgatory or hell or what.
Right.
But I just wanted to relay that my personal near-death experience was I saw absolutely nothing.
You know, that, again, that is funny that you bring kidney failure up because I had the same thing happen to me. I was unaware that I was going through kidney failure, though, complete failure. I was taking a blood pressure medication at the time called lisinopril. And
I'm on it.
Oh, well, there you go. And it's in some cases it's a water pill as well. Well, I was somewhat dehydrated and this and that to begin with what I was doing, and I was having vision problems and things like that. So I thought maybe my blood pressure was a smite high. So I had taken an extra lisinopril. And throughout the day, that's why I'd mentioned the horse blinders, is because I got that same feeling, almost as if I was drunk without being drunk.
Yeah, like tunnel vision.
Yeah, I had no clue what was going. I don't even remember driving to the hospital, to be honest with you, something that I probably shouldn't have done. But when you had mentioned that you only had a few hours' time, I was told the same thing, that I needed to be life-flighted almost immediately to a location because my kidneys weren't working at all. They were at 0%. And everything you're telling me is almost exactly like my situation. So now I'm really curious about it. Was that actually purgatory? Was that actually something that you just mentioned? That is very curious to me.
Yeah, and that's what I wondered too, because I've heard of people talking about, going into the light. I've heard of people going into darkness, and I've heard of people just having no reactionary instinct at all.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's hard to say.
It is very hard to say. Go ahead.
I want to ask you personally, whenever you went into kidney failure, did it hurt you at all? Did you feel any pain or anything?
I don't. Let's put everything out there, I suppose. I bounce back and forth between stage 2 and stage 3 myself. And the only, I guess, I wouldn't necessarily call it pain, but it's more or less a discomfort that I feel on either one of my sides at any given time. It's sort of hard to describe. It's as if you have to go to the bathroom badly, but not really. Other than that, it's usually allocated pain to somewhere else in my body. But I do know that I feel almost like a floating sensation, a sensation as if you're also going to cramp a lot. And I notice that I get actually quite sweaty too when things aren't going as they should as far as my kidneys. What was your experience with that? Are you in? Do you have chronic kidney disease or anything like that?
That was the first time I'd have ever had any problems with my kidneys at all.
So that was acute then, essentially, and you've never had any issues after that?
No. I was just wondering if you felt any pain, because I know, like, the whole time, like, for 4 days, I was in acute kidney failure, and I felt literally no pain at all from it.
Yeah.
I didn't even have any discomfort.
No, going back to that first time that I was speaking about, I didn't have any discomfort either. I just, I was just being told that all these bad ththings were happening. Right. I didn't feel anything. They said, "Oh my gosh, and it's funny you mentioned the saline in both arms and this and that. It was the same thing with me. But yeah, I had no pain. I could have never told you that I was in complete kidney failure I had no clue. They were telling me I was going to be dead in a couple hours, and that they didn't want me to go home. I actually refused to stay in the hospital at the time for a whole nother reason that I can't really speak about. But they said they didn't want me drinking anything either because they said I was going to drown myself in my own fluids.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was insane. But I didn't feel any different. I felt normal.
That's what they did with me, too. They had me on so much fluids that by the end of the 4th day of being in the hospital, when I would breathe, I would gurgle.
Oh, yeah. I have that situation as we speak nowadays. If I take a deep breath, there's some gurgling. But, when I go to the hospital and get checked out, there's nothing wrong with me. Just stage 2 and stage 3. I fluctuate back and forth. Of course, when you get older, that tends to, your kidney function tends to go down. But you were saying?
Right. But I guess no news is good news when it comes to stuff like that.
Oh, I'll tell you what, you're absolutely right. It did for a while when I first found out. For me, it eventually led to CKD. But for a while there, you didn't really take it too seriously. You didn't understand how serious the situation truly was, and for me, I really watch things nowadays. I watch what I eat. I watch what I drink. I don't. As a matter of fact, I quit drinking alcohol and stopped smoking cigarettes and everything. I mean, it really changed my life as far as that kidney stuff goes. It's definitely not something. It's not something to play around with,
Yeah, I completely quit drinking alcohol except on very special occasions.
Yeah.
And even then, I won't have more than 3 to 6 beers, and I don't drink hard liquor at all anymore.
Yep.
And I quit drinking anything like dark sodas and stuff like that. About the only dark-colored thing that I'll drink is a glass of tea once in a great while.
That is, you're spot on, my friend. You're spot on. I stopped drinking pop, and all I do is drink water that has a pH balance of at least above 8.4. And I'll tell you what, it does make a difference. I've noticed a lot of difference, to be honest with you. But, I just, when you mentioned that, right away it rang a bell in my head, and I said, wow, this guy is telling exactly what I went through. I've noticed that a few times tonight. You've mentioned things. But, Jennifer... Oh, go ahead. Yeah, honestly. I think Jennifer has one of the last questions here.
So, James, one last question here before we go, I believe, for the night, because it's getting up there, unfortunately.
We're out of time. Time flies when you're having fun.
Exactly.
You have experienced all of these paranormal and the cryptids, all the dark entities and stuff like that. Have you ever experienced any angels?
No, that's one thing that I've never encountered was an angel. I believe I've had several run-ins with what I would call demons, but never an angel.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, too, nowadays that bring up the fact that how do you even differentiate between demons and angels and things of that nature? There's so many...
Fallen angels.
Right.
The watchers.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And, we brought up portals there momentarily as well. There's so many things that we've learned now throughout the years that we just didn't know, before. And I'm glad that there's people like you out there, telling your story because, as I mentioned before, people were afraid to come out and talk about this type of stuff, whether it be the paranormal, UFOs and things of that nature. But we absolutely need more people like you coming out to tell your story. And in the overall, it's going to help everyone. So
exactly.
I am. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, just like with the Dogman encounters, the first encounter was enough, but like I said, nobody's going to believe the second one. And it's what happened. I mean, I don't
Right.
know what else to say, but it's what happened, and
Well, you know,
I can't really prove it, but
And the possession.
all I can prove to you is that I'm on a lot of mental health medication because of it.
and you know, there's two things that I want to mention as well. You know, there is nothing to be ashamed about or anything of that nature. Having to go on medication because of incidences like this. I know plenty of people. You know, at an instance, I was one that experienced these type of issues. You know, but. Like I said, with more people coming forward and discussing this, not only will it become easier on the people that have already gone through it, but the people that are currently going through it, you know, it's just going to become so much more easier. Jen has something for you.
And this way you might
that's
actually... This way you might have actually opened up a light for people who are experiencing this right now, don't know what exactly they're looking at, and maybe now they have avenues of who to call or even where to even start.
Reach out and contact, yeah.
Right, and that's more or less why, like, honestly, I mean, my personal belief is you either believe me or you don't. It doesn't bother me either way. I like to have people that are skeptical because you don't learn unless it's being pushed.
Well, you know, it's just like I say, you know, you either believe me you know, or you don't. Personally, I don't care. You know, I'm telling you the truth. It's up to you whether you want to believe what I have to say or anybody else for that matter. We know what we saw and we know what we've dealt with.
Exactly. Like I said, a friend of ours is local here that they're police officers and constables and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember what year it was. It was either 2017 or early 2018. I had mentioned this dogman encounters to my mother.
Okay.
And she said, well, how is there any way we can, like, prove that you did that? And I said, well, I'm telling you it's happened. Well, she called our friend, and him and the other friend who's a constable, they came over to the house with a lie detector machine.
I was just going to ask that. Is that what they did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they did it right in my house. And I passed it.
Passed it with flying colors.
Yeah, like their baselines and stuff were all perfect. Like, asked me what my name is, how do you spell my name?
Yeah.
Is it spelled correctly? Did you ever fight a dog man? Is the sky blue outside? Do you drive a pickup truck? Did you ever wrestle a dog man? You know, it's like,
and
you can't fake it.
And there you go. I would carry that information everywhere I went with me too. If somebody wants to go ahead and deny what I had to say, you know, take a look at this lie detector. Yeah. It tells you right there that I'm telling the truth. James, I'm so glad that you came on the program, and I hope to have you back on very soon.
Oh, one last thing.
Yes.
You asked me about my book.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. If you could tell us anything about the book real quick, and when there's going to be a release date.
Well, I started it March 8th of this year.
Okay.
I'm hoping to have it done within the next couple of months. Once publishing happens and all that stuff, that'll be the hard part, is actually coming up with the funds to get it published.
Right.
But
right.
I'm 50% done with it right now. It's only taken me about a month and a half to write half of it.
Oh wow! So it's just flowing right out.
Oh, I'm having a blast with it. Basically, what it's going to be is the title of it, or at least the working title of it right now, is 50 Cryptids in 50 States.
Okay. Okay.
What I'm doing is I'm picking one cryptid from each state in the Union, and also one for the Virgin Islands and one for Puerto Rico.
Oh,
and
wow.
then I'm trying to write like 3 to 5 pages of information about each one of them.
Now that's unique. I like that.
Yeah, and all the research that I've done, sometimes even checking out well-read books and things, you can't find more than a page of information about something.
No, you really can't.
Well, just for an instance, my first cryptid in my book if I remember correctly, I don't have it pulled up right now, but it's the Kushtaka in Alaska.
Kushtaka. Okay.
Basically what it is, it's an otter creature that it can become the size of a man. They possess the necessity to kill people in cold blood.
Ooh.
They will lure you out of your home. They especially like to lure children and solitary people out into the woods where they commence to shred you apart.
Well.
Remind me to stay out of Alaska.
Yeah, my gosh.
And I'd never even heard of this thing until I started writing the book. So with it, I have 5 pages of information, but I'm also including in those pictures of the cryptids, more than one picture of a cryptid, because I've read several books that they have one picture. But there's so many variations to these things that you can't get away with just putting one picture, you know?
Right. You want to try to grab every aspect that you possibly can.
As much as I can, correct. And I also have included maps, like Google Maps and other map systems and stuff, to where I can show what towns these things occur in, the general areas, like with sea serpents, what waterways they're in, and like just for instance too, with Cassie up near Maine, I pulled up the map and I circled the entire area that they believe is Cassie's dominion.
Okay.
You know, and then I put that in the book along with the descriptions and all the other accounts and things like that. Just because I know whenever I read, I get more information, or it's quicker for me if I can read something and then I see a picture that's supposed to be of what I just read.
Yeah.
It like locks it into my memory.
It does. It makes it more, unique in things. You have a visual.
Exactly. So, but like I said, I'm hoping to have it out by around May or June.
Okay. And you know what? Like I said, we'll get that posted on Nate Talk's Facebook there as well, along with the pictures that you had mentioned to go along with the stories that you were telling, so people can go there to Nate Talks Radio Facebook and check those out as well, speaking of visuals. So I hate to do this to you. We got about a minute left now, James. So like I said, I am glad that you came on the show, and I look forward to maybe speaking to you again, maybe when that book comes out, eh?
Okay, it sounds good.
Okay, you have yourself a wonderful evening, my friend.
Have a good night, James.
And also to contact me, probably the quickest way to contact me would be through Facebook Messenger under James West.
Facebook Messenger under James West. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
no problem.
My email is all one word, dogmantruth86@gmail.com. But allow me 24 to 48 hours because I sometimes don't get to check my email every day. So
okay.
If somebody would try to get a hold of me or send me any information or anything like that, don't think that I'm not looking. It's just sometimes it takes me a little bit of time because I'm busy all the time.
Oh, yeah. I totally understand. Okay, yeah, we'll get...
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. We'll get all that information up for you, okay?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
You have a good night.
All right, you as well. Bye-bye,
Thank
James.
You, Jenny.
Yep. Good night, James. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, folks, that was James West. We will put all that information up for you on Night Talk's Facebook, but we are flat out of time, so we are going to close it up for the night, and we will see you tomorrow. So, for Jennifer Gregerson, James West, and Night Talks Radio, this is Daniel Brewer saying good night, everybody.